We are living in interesting times. More than 130,000 people are dead as a result of COVID-19 here in this country. People continue to take to the streets to demand police reform and racial equality. Businesses are trying to survive COVID-19 restrictions, and many are still trying to get back to work. With so much going on, you would think that President Trump would be focused on his seemingly full plate. Instead, yesterday, he took to Twitter to tweet about NASCAR driver Bubba Wallace. He said this in a tweet that has Bubba Wallace apologized to all of those great NASCAR drivers and officials who came to his aid, stood by his side, and were willing to sacrifice everything for him, only to find out that the whole thing was just another hoax. That and flag decision has caused lowest ratings ever. That tweet was in regards to the news found in Wallace's garage. An FBI investigation determined last month that the noose had been there since 2019 and did not appear to be directed toward Wallace. Putting all of that aside, President Trump, now is not the time to spend time weighing in on matters like this. Given the government's sloppy response to COVID-19 and the growing racial tension taking place right now, what the American people are craving is leadership, clarity, and hope. Not a president that is solely dedicated to playing to his base. That's going to do it for us tonight. I'm Larry Miller. From all of us here at the Q&A, have a good night.